Hi, good afternoon, or perhaps good morning if you're out west for us today. This is Mark Wolf with Emergency Reporting for Virtual Thursday, the 19th edition for 2018, today, December 6th, 2018. Got a few things I want to mention here, a few shout outs. Greg Anderson, one of our sales team members, is out there with us today. A few folks, customers that I've specifically worked with out there, I want to mention them. Greg Ballman, hey, good to see you from out in California. Jeffrey Hilvers from just down the road here in the great state of Ohio from me. Good to see you on board with us. And also Nancy Shane from up in Michigan. I think Tom may have a couple of customers to give a shout out to. Tom?
Yeah, you've named all the people I was going to shout out. I'll do a shout out to Mark and also to Paul Ridings in the great state of I believe he is in. I think he's in Oregon, but he could be in Washington. But I know I've worked with Paul before, and so it's great to see a lot of familiar names with us today. And we'll let you get started, Mark.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Tom. I just want to also remind everybody there is a chat feature on the thing where you can post in some questions to us. I'm going to do the main presenting today, and Tom is on board as my wingman that's going to respond to those questions. So without further ado, we are going to get rolling here. Okay, today we are going to cover roles and permissions, the account conversion for that. Again, my name is Mark Wolf, and I do have, again, Tom Lewis, who has moved over to our sales team, essentially working in that chain of command as our business development analyst. And I appreciate Tom for stepping in today to give me a hand. I want to mention again, as we always try to do, our training opportunities. We have virtual Thursdays, the first Thursday of the month at 1100 hours Pacific time. These are absolutely free, just a little bit of your time, and we're happy to present those for you. We do have online training available. We do that in 3-hour blocks. Those training opportunities can be customized to meet your needs, and we will again do those online. We do perform on-site training. As of this week, we actually have one of our trainers, Todd, is down in Alabama at Fort Rucker, and we have Ryan in Passaic, New Jersey, performing on-site training. And next week, I'll be on my way out to Minot, North Dakota for some on-site training. So we keep pretty busy with that. And you might want to take those opportunities to bring one of our trainers into your department and take advantage of those very intensive training sessions we have. We also want to mention that we do provide regional training academies. The regional training academies that we have upcoming and scheduled, tickets are on sale for all of these. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, February 5, 6, and 7. Dallas, Texas, April 9th, 10th, and 11th. Anaheim, California, May 14, 15, and 16. You can go to emergencyreporting.com, click on the links there for resources or news and events. Then you can select the Regional Training Academy overview from either one of those sections there and sign up for those. And also, if you want to request a quote for online training or an on-site training, please send a message in to us at training@emergencyreporting.com, and we'll be happy to get back with you. All right, so here's what we're here to talk about today. All accounts that have the legacy security settings as is displaying right now. You're all familiar with these. I'm sure from the past, we have the radio button selections on these. These are individual based. For every person in your agency, you would have to go down and make selections for their security settings or what they can do and cannot do in the system. Essentially, the access in here is somewhat limited. We have settings for no access, full access, read-only access, and then limited access for some of the modules, and that kind of varied what you were able to do in each one of those modules with that limited access. So this is going away, and everybody is being converted to our new roles and permissions. So there is an alert message on your administration page in your admin module for this alert security improvements. There's a couple links on this particular message that will take you to the knowledge base, and there's several knowledge base articles on roles and permissions, and a previous virtual Thursday presentation on roles and permissions is available right there. There are additional items that you can look up in the knowledge base on our support page, look in the roles and permissions section, which I believe is towards the top of the page. It's, I think, titled Administration Roles and Permissions. And also, we've done a couple presentations previously on this topic on our Virtual Thursday training, and those are recorded and put in our webinars on demand section. I also want to point out today, available in your control panel for the GoToWebinar session, Tom has graciously printed out and converted to PDF versions 5 knowledge-based articles concerning roles and permissions, and they're available for you right now under that section on your control panel. So you have full access to everything we're talking about today is in our knowledge-based articles in the knowledge base. So in roles and permissions, we have a new look, and it is certainly a new system, and we call it new, but it's actually been out there and available for a while. We did a lot of beta testing with this, and we moved over some accounts as we worked with some folks at our regional training academies and elsewhere to the new roles and permissions. So we do have a number of accounts on it, but the vast majority of our accounts are being converted over the next few weeks. So in your security tab on everybody's personnel record, this is what it will look like when we change you over to roles and permissions. You can see instead of having all the radio buttons available to set everything for no access, full access, and so forth, is changed to one field. And you'll select the actual auto-generated role as it usually viewed here, or one of the roles that you create. That link, roles and permissions, there will actually take you directly to the roles and permissions page where you can set things up just as you need for your department. So that's what your security tab in everybody's record will look like, and it's one place that you can set one of your members of your department's roles and the permissions. The other place, and we're going to dig into this in just a few moments, is what the roles and permissions page looks like. This is an example, and we're going to tie into that in just a few minutes here when we look at a few things. So that is the end of our little slide presentation, and we're going to jump over into the admin module. I want to go cover one thing prior to that. It's also new. I'm gonna scroll down here just a bit. Here you can see on the admin page, when you get changed over to roles and permissions, you'll now have an extra section that will open up called security, and there's 2 links in here. The top one's security roles and permissions, and then the second one is the security primary administration role. First thing we're going to do is talk about that particular section. This is pretty new. I think this was deployed about 2 weeks ago. And simply put, this gives us the ability to set a primary administrator for your account. In this case, this is a training account that I manage. My name is on it, but you can see with our drop-down menu here, everybody on our personnel list is listed here, and you will select one person as the primary administrator. Basically, what this is essentially for, helps us out a little bit, and our program that drives the system out there identifies a primary administrator, which is pretty much a point person for us and your agency who is leading your efforts for your administration of your emergency reporting account. One of the things I want to point out to everybody, when you are set as primary administrator, whoever needs to do that for an agency, I'm going to jump over here to another tab, go to our personnel list, and I'll filter this out and find myself on the list, which is right here. When you're set as the primary administrator, the one thing that does happen is if we try to move this person from a status of active to inactive or to archive the primary administrator, the system will not allow you to do that. You're going to get a message similar to this: cannot archive user or cannot change to inactive status. So if roles change within your agency and your primary administrator needs to be updated, or maybe that person needs to be switched to their status from active to inactive or archived, you'll have to set a new primary administrator before you can archive or set to inactive the current primary administrator. Another thing that you'll see that I want to make sure we cover is when you're set as the primary administrator, and you have to think of the primary administrator as a super admin level individual. We're going to take a peek into rules and permissions right now, and we're going to go into full discussion on how these things all set up. I will go into this auto-generated rule number 3 right now, and show you this is what that will look like. But what we're going to do here is go to the personnel. We're going to add, remove personnel. And one thing I want to show you is on our list of available personnel to put into this role, which is your whole personnel list. When we filter this out, looking for me, since I'm the primary administrator, my name goes off of this particular list down here. Basically what happens when you're the primary administrator, you have full permissions in everything in the whole entire account. So your name will be removed off of these lists down here. We just want to point that out to you. Again, you want to think of that person as a super admin level person. You can create a role within your agency and set the permissions for full admin levels, to full access into everything. And then if any personnel you put into it will have access into everything that you set. They will not be the primary administrator, however. The primary administrator would have to be changed in there. And I can see we have a couple questions out there. One from Scott. What's the difference between inactive and archived? Okay, I think that's an excellent question. Let me actually get into there to show you.
Yeah, Mark, I'm working on a typed answer, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. One of the best explanations is for Scott is when you take somebody on your personnel list, and I'm going to just pick somebody out here and change them, their status right here on their personal info page from active to inactive. The biggest effect that has on them in the system is that it removes their name from most of the drop-down list for adding personnel onto calls and training and so forth. Inactive personnel will still be available for a pick list, specifically in the events module. And Tom put a nice response out there to that so everybody can see that. When you archive somebody, it removes them from all the pick list. And it also, one of the functions of the archive list, I'm going to jump in, there's several archived people on here. As you can see, it immediately, when you archive an individual, it immediately removes them from accessing their account no matter what. So here is a unarchived user. If you need to access their record for some reason or another, you can unarchive them. And what will happen is we'll go back to that list, either the active list or the inactive list, whichever one you brought them in from. So let's get back out to the admin module. Couple notes here for that primary administration role in your account. If the person selected for that basically at the rollover into this new and conversion to the new roles and permissions, or basically what we expect them to do is to take a look at things to see what came into the auto-generated roles, review the personnel assigned to those roles, perhaps rename them if you need to something that means something more to your agency besides the auto-generated text that we put in when we convert you. You can reassign personnel to those different roles if you need to. And then that primary administrator, and specifically with roles and permissions, we're asking them to be the point person to edit and create new roles as needed out there. So, Tom, do we have I know a whole bunch of questions just came flying in.
Yeah, so let me run through them real quick. So what is the final date to convert from Paul Writings, and how do you request to convert early? So Paul, we expect everybody to be, and everyone listening, we expect to have everyone converted by mid-January 2019, if not sooner. Now, as far as an early conversion, do me a favor. If you guys, well, gotta be careful here, because everybody participating will probably want to convert early. Just send me an email, tom@emergencyreporting.com. I'll get with our support team and the product owner, because we did some early conversions, like Mark mentioned, for beta testing, those that attended the Miami RTA last year and such. I won't promise you we'll be able to roll you over early, but if you send me an email with your account ID, I will look into it. But just let me see, because they do have a pretty structured plan on rolling this out. So I don't know if we're going to be able to do early rollouts or not, but send me an email regardless, and I'll give it a shot.
Okay, perfect, Tom. Thank you. I
And
want to get back up to Joyce, was it? Okay, Joyce. So her question is, what happens if the primary admin leaves before changing to a new primary? So I would assume, Joyce, you're afraid that if the primary administrator is the only one with admin access, nobody else would have access to that. I would really recommend that you hopefully limit that and have at least 2 people in your agency that can access the admin module. So if you can access the admin module, anybody that would have that ability can come in here and select a new primary administrator. It's fairly straightforward. Just select that link and pull the name that you want as a primary administrator off the list and save it. We do have the ability also to get into the back end of the system in a worst case scenario where you don't have anybody else, and change it from our side of things as well. So that would be a support ticket we need to put in, and we would need some credentialing information on that individual making that request to make that change to the primary administrator. So Joyce, I hope that answers your question. Again, I'm a big fan of not having everything locked up under one individual for permissions. I think even if you do identify a primary administrator out there, you should have somebody else that has admin access, because people go on vacation, people may not be able to access the account for something that needs to be changed immediately. So just as a good business practice, I think you should recommend, we should recommend it. You have somebody else that has admin access can update that for you.
Hey, Mark, let me jump in just for a second too regarding echo your comments for Joyce. Keep in mind, everybody, that the primary, so the key word there in Joyce's question is primary admin. What that says to me is that you've got a primary, and hopefully you have a secondary and tertiary admin. Like Mark said, never just have one admin, and don't have too many, of course, but certainly don't limit yourself to just one. And then the key thing here, it gets a little confusing with the primary administrator. What does that mean, and what special privileges? There's no, what primary administrator means is that you're identifying a specific individual in your organization as primary. That does 2 things. One, it identifies it for your organization, but there's some little things on our back end that requires in our configurator in our system, in the main ER back end, is that there needs to be a primary administrator identified for us as well. And so you're doing that not just for your agency, but also for us in our system configurator. And then secondly, you can have other administrators, and those other administrators with the full permissions will have the same exact permissions that your primary administrator has, just they won't be identified as the primary administrator. So there's nothing fancy here other than identifying a specific person, or as we say, one throat to choke.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I do want to point out too, to add to what Tom has already said, in the background, when we convert an account to roles and permissions, our master support login that we use will be writing out there as your primary administrator until you change it to somebody. But that still doesn't override our ability to take a look at your account if we need to help you out with a support issue or otherwise. So we appreciate that. Nancy, I just want to mention that Tom just put it out here. You're not going to get a message on a per agency basis. Basically what we're doing is converting accounts. We're ramping that up. It started this week on Monday. You really will not notice any changes in your account as functionality goes with what your people can and cannot do. We have the ability, let's see, I'm going to skip over that. I want to we'll make a mention for Paul. You're asking about the restrictor. You can do a bulk review. Yes, we can do that. And I can show you that in the roles and permissions on what is available in there.
Hey, Mark, one thing I want to mention for Nancy Graves is that we're not going to contact each agency per agency, because that would be over 6,000 agencies. But what we are doing, we're trying to have multiple vectors of communicating this. So you're going to see it here in a virtual Thursday in system announcements. You're going to see it on the admin page at the top header of the admin page. There's going to be the knowledge base article. So there's a lot of ways we're communicating this, but we're not going to be making calls or specific emails to each agency. We did, however, also put this out via the Update ER. So if you are on the mailing list for Update ER or subscribe to our blog, you would have got this information as well.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
You know, we are sending that out, like Tom said, over various channels to get that information out to everybody. And as Tom said, we have well over 6,000 accounts that have to be converted over the next few weeks. So making an individual contact to every agency really isn't too feasible. Okay, so again, we're going to mention that the accounts have been started to be switched over in batches starting this week on Monday. You really won't notice anything. It's going to be a seamless changeover. When you do change over, again, I mentioned that this security section right here on your admin page will be there after you're converted. And then you'll have those two links. We ask you to set that primary administrator, and then let's jump into the roles and permissions to take a look at this. Now, what happens is the system, as we're rolling you over to roles and permissions, it will look out into your account and analyze all the security settings for everyone in your agency, and then create an auto-generated role for those. Now, some of them may be under the same one because they have the same exact security settings, but every different, even if it's only one radio button different, it will generate. What you're seeing on the screen now is the auto-generated roles, and they'll number them. Auto-generated role number 1 is typically the highest level, which is full access and everything, and then it'll go down from there. So really depending on your account and how many different security settings that you currently have, you'll have a concurrent number of auto-generated roles out here. Now, in this particular account that I set up here shows you that there's 5 of them that it auto-generated. And it really depends on your account. I'll give you an example of this. I was on site training here a while back, and we converted an agency to roles and permissions. They had right about 90 personnel. Well, they were kind of, let's just call it scattered about the map in their security settings. And when we changed them over, it selected and auto-generated right about 70 roles and permissions for them because they weren't too consistent internally in setting their security settings up for folks. And we realized that some of your folks will need different permissions versus other people, even at the same ranks. And this system will give you the flexibility to set them up. So essentially, when you get switched to roles and permissions, everybody will be put into an auto-generated role that'll match their current security settings. And again, you may have a handful, as in this example you're looking at right now, or a lot of auto-generated roles created, depending on the size and scope of your department and how you have your settings set. Everybody is into one of those auto-generated roles based upon, again, their current settings. So let's take a look at the main grid here and talk about some of the things with it. You can see under the roles column over here on the left is the name of the roles and permissions. And when we do this auto-generated in the name and in the description, it will be the same. You can see up here at the top, we have a filter here. So if we generate more than we can view on the screen, we can filter them just by starting to type in text, as I did right here with the number 5. Right next door to, let's talk about this. At the top, we've got the ability to sort these alphabetically in ascending and descending order. And let's move next door to the middle and largest column is the description. Now for the description column, we can also sort that ascending or descending. And this will be the description. And you can see we have a room for quite a bit of text to be displayed here for that description. Next door to that, moving to the right, is the personnel column. Now the personnel column will just display to us of how many personnel are assigned into these different roles. And next door to that, to the far right, is our actions column. In the actions column, we can add or remove personnel by selecting that button. We can edit the roles and permission with the edit memo pad. And next to that, we have the ability to delete a role and permission. Now you may notice a difference here with the trash can for deleting on here. I've got one that's bold. The rest of them are dimmed out and I cannot even select them if I try. you cannot delete a role and permission if anybody is assigned to it. So if you're going, you don't want to use one in particular, in your particular case, you'll have to move all the personnel out of it and get a 0 here, and then you'll be able to delete that particular role. That is a hard delete. So if you do something accidentally, if you contact us for it, we're going to say, so sorry. Now, you can't really accidentally do this because as you see on this one, I selected the trash can to delete it. And I get a pop-up here, another dialog box, and I will have to do another click operation here to delete that role. But we're going to leave that one here for right now. All right, so in your particular case, everything here when you get switched over is going to have the auto-generated role text in it. And all your personnel will be assigned to them, as we've been saying. So what we're going to do then is we're going to show you how you add a role. At the top of the page, we've got a button for adding a role. It's fairly simple. We'll select that. And here's what our new dialog window will look like now. A nice feature that we built into this is actually pretty awesome, is the fact that you can create a new role and permission based upon one of your current roles and permissions. So if we select the arrow here, if we want to create it based on an existing, we've got 4 templates that are in here for admin, firefighter, officer, and inspector as a starting point, and all of your current roles and permissions will be listed here. So if I wanted to create a new one off of one of my existing ones, as simple as selecting it, giving it a name, and then updating my description. What works best typically in the description field is just to type out some text describing what permissions this particular role will have. Is it full admin? Is it specifically for a officer position with maybe in this case, we want to use this role we're going to base it off of, but add permissions to it because of a specific reason. Over here on the left side under the permissions button, this is the part here that creates all this magic for us. Now, in this particular role, when we set it up here, the one that we had, the auto-generated role number 5, has full access into everything. What we'll do then is using a subtractive permissions process, we'll go through here and essentially take away permissions from full access. A couple important points here. For a module, such as the analytics module, you'll see we have displayed here 0 items. Any of the modules that have 0 items listed for the permissions means your settings available pretty straightforward in this row. No access, read-only access, or full access. Any of the modules that have items listed, such as a daybook has 4 items, I'll select the arrow here, we'll open this up, and you'll see that I've got 4 specific permission levels in here to set. In a lot of cases, we'll say, okay, I want this person to be able to enter items to the daily log. So we're going to give them access to it, and then we're going to subtract items away. That's the subtractive process to essentially take away permissions to perform certain entries. So in this case, I'm taking away the ability to delete their own and any other daily log entries, and I'm also going to take away their ability to modify all daily log entries. They're only able to modify their own. So that's basically that process, and I will go through the different modules and set that up exactly as I need for this role for the personnel assigned to it. So here's a good example here for the hydrants module, where we gave them full access, and all these radio buttons over here would have been set to full access. If I set to full access, then I take away permissions, subtract permissions as I need to for this specific role. I'm a big advocate of limiting your personnel, except at the admin level, the senior officers in your department, the ability to delete things. So that's something you really want to take a look at, is who can delete what in these different individual roles and permissions settings. So then I will go down through this whole entire thing, looking at the different sections. So I know we had a question before from one of our attendees about the ability to review incident reports. We actually have two settings within the incident modules that involve the review of completed calls. We have one permission setting that will allow an individual to review any and all calls. And then we also have a setting that gives them the permissions to only review their own calls, my incidents. So those are the part of the incremental settings for that. So hopefully that answers your question, whoever cannot remember that. I think Paul mentioned that. So that's how we would do that, Paul. There's two settings that talk about reviewing incidents within the incident module. Once we go down through here and we set these as we need to for all the different modules, we will come down here and add that role to our list. So I hear Tom breaking in. Tom, you have something?
I'm good.
Okay, perfect. So that's how we would essentially set up a brand new role based upon an existing one. Remember, I pulled this auto-generated role number 5 into the new role, and here it is. And you can see I have no personnel assigned to it. So it's fairly simple to add a person to this role, and we can do that in two places. The first place we can do it is here within roles and permissions, but what I'm going to do is show you in the personnel list. Got one section here. Come down here to this particular user. I am on my archive list. Let me get back to my active list. I'm going to come into this record and go to the security tab. And now I can change them right within the security tab for them to all of my roles and permissions are selectable here. So I just moved him from auto generated role number 3 to the one I just created. It's simple as that. We'll save it. And now their permissions are changed to that particular role. The other place we can do this, and there's really a nice feature here. I'm going to refresh my page. We should have one person here for the new one that I created is down here in the bottom. When we go to the people button here to add remove personnel and select that, this is what we have. And this is the list of the personnel that are in this role, and our entire personnel list is listed down here below that. You'll notice we do have filters on this. So let's say in this particular case, we made this role for lieutenant personnel. So we're going to filter it to anybody that's assigned as a lieutenant, and we can add them individually by selecting this blue plus sign button over here on the right column for the ones we want to essentially throw up to the top. Or we have the ability to do a bulk operation. If I want to do everybody in this rank level, all I have to do is select that checkbox here, and it just picked 7 personnel. Select add to role, and there they go. Or I could select them individually if I just want to pick a few of those people up there. And we also have the ability to select them as a bulk operation. Up the top, I selected all of them, and I'm going to remove them from that role. And what the system will do is put them back to their previous role down here that they were in. So that's how that will work for you with the bulk operations and that filtering list in the system. So we want to actually select and deselect all of those. So that's how you do it. Now, when you do it through here, or you do it through their individual personnel thing, if you add them to a new role, so you switch them, it's actually going to go in and take them off of their old role automatically. So you don't have to delete them from a role and then add them to a different one. Just change them into the role you want to put them into, and it will move them, and they'll be good to go after that. So that's how we would move people between the roles. If you're entering a new person in your agency, it's very simple in the security tab. When you're giving them permissions to access the system with a login user ID and a password, and you just jump right down to that security section, add them to the proper role. Or you can come into this page and perform those operations just like I demonstrated there. That is pretty much everything that we wanted to cover with this. So Tom, do we have any information out there we need to review from the questions that folks are putting them in?
I think we're doing pretty good on the questions. Scott, Scott mentioned something about the Bengals, so he may have to further explain that one. But
Okay, well, Scott, I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, and better or worse. And let me tell you, sometimes it's been really bad. I'm a Bengals fan, so that's what you see there. When we make up his training account, we got to put some names in it. So I used the Bengals roster.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's what it is. We've got one of our other trainers that has his personnel list are members of the Big Red machine from back in the 70s. So some of those names will be familiar to you as well. George Foster, Pete Rose, and some of those guys. Burfict does, but he's injured right now, Scott. He was injured out for a bit, and they just came back in, and he's out now for the season. So I imagine you're a Steelers fan, perhaps, Scott. That's where that's coming from. Or Cleveland Browns, maybe.
So you know what? We'll just go Broncos is all I've got to say. So
there you go. We all have our favorite team, or we should.
Hey, I want to respond to Paul Writing's question. So right now, there isn't a way to limit the ability to bulk review. So if you have the ability to review yours or other incidents, and there's on that the incidents page where you set it to just show completed incidents, and then you can check those boxes to do the bulk review. The roles and permissions does not change at all. However, what we want you all to consider as you begin working with these new roles and permissions is to be sure to communicate via our feature request that, wow, I really would like to have this granular permission in the admin module. And that's the power of what this new roles and permissions can give us. So this is foundational. So we're building a skyscraper here. And right now we're converting what the old module-based permissions were into the new roles-based permissions. And so we're laying that foundation to build more and more. So we've had a lot of requests for different granular permissions. And so this is where we can start doing it, and it'll be up to the individual product owners to decide, which ones get through and get developed. But definitely keep communicating with us on that. And one of the things I want to mention from Charles Dickinson. So is there any way within roles and permissions to allow users to update their own information? That is a great question. Right now, the burden rests on the administrator to update contact information, certifications, anything that the person would see in my profile. So we've got a user story that's been discussed to where we'd like the ability for each user, so we're firefighters in Charles's department, he's an admin, that, tell me what you guys think of this, is that we would be able to go in and, as a firefighter, update that information. It would be like in a yellow lock status where it's complete, but then it's incumbent upon an administrator to confirm with that firefighter that everything is indeed correct, and then they would review it, and then it would update that employee's personnel information. We're not there yet, but that's been discussed, and I think it'd be a pretty great tool, especially for, well, any department, but I can only imagine the larger agencies that have hundreds of people that have to manage this. So that's the kind of thing that's not so much within roles and permissions per se, but is a great example of a user story. And since Charles mentioned it, I wanted to kind of verbalize that to the group here today.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I hear that quite a bit too when I'm on site out there, that especially for the larger agencies, for an individual within the agency to do that. So it's certainly being talked about. I want to respond basically back to one of the questions from Michael out there. How do you recommend dealing with discipline? Is there a way you can limit personnel from seeing certain certificates? And I believe what you're talking about, Michael, is the ability to access certificates in the training module. What we're going to do is I'm going to jump into one of these roles here and go to permissions and go into the training module all the way down here at the bottom. And we do have the ability to set certain settings dealing with certifications down here. There's two of them. Modify user certifications at the bottom and modify certificates. And I believe what those do, if we remove full access from those, then they won't be able to go in. They won't have that certificates button at the top of the training module page, and they will not be able to look at that information. Hopefully that answers your question.
Hey, Shane, on Shane's question about can we scan or upload files in the discipline field in personnel? So I know which field you're talking about in admin. That is a text-only field. You don't have the ability to upload files there. So again, that's another element of the system where, again, it would be a good user story, I think, to have just a kind of almost a private tab for officers only, or again, that would be, so Shane, what Shane's saying is if we had the ability to upload files for, say, disciplinary action or anything like that, that should be very limited to who could have access. That would be a great additional, say, tab within the personnel list and information for each individual, and then have a granular permission for limiting access to just those tabs, or a tab rather. And so that those are things that will evolve with this system, with the new roles and permissions. Part of what we're going to need to hear from all of you is, where does this need to happen? What are your critical needs to make more granular permissions?
Absolutely, Tom. And your best place to put that for everybody attending is a feature request that's available from your homepage. We hear about these things quite a bit, and that's a frequent topic of discussion at the on-site trainings, is the ability to upload files into that, because now, like Tom said, you can only put text in. One thing I'll mention to everybody out there with us today is, I don't have a hard date for this to start. However, in next year, from what I understand, through our product manager and product owners, is they're going to be adding some significant numbers of individual permissions to the system as we go forward here. So you're going to see those, and we'll try to communicate those to you when we do implement those. So we'll see where that goes, but certainly put your ideas for rules and permissions, for incremental permissions, into the suggested feature so we can take a look at it. That's the basic route for you communicating to us what your needs are. And we'll also get some of your friends and certainly yourself to vote for those, get that vote count up there. That's ultra important. And we'll give everybody a few moments. If anybody has any other questions, we benchmark an hour for this, although the actually setting up a role and the concurrent permissions for it is fairly straightforward and easy. I think it's fairly simple. So we'll allow everybody a few minutes here. If you got a last minute question you want to put in, or if Tom, you have any other items you want to.
No, and just keep it. You're going through and configuring it. We've had a lot of beta testing go on, and we've discovered some things as we've gone through it that needed to be refined, and we'll continue to refine it. But if you find something that seems off or doesn't match the description in the permission that you've set, send that to support so we can document, track it, and research it.
Yes, thanks, Tom. Okay, Paul says, didn't see limited as a permission on the new demo. Is that gone? Essentially it is, because you'll be able to go into those modules that have the items listed. Let me just go back in and look at this again. And then you can set up your limited permissions on exactly what you want them to be able to do. So anyway, on the modules that had in the legacy permissions, your only options were none, read-only, or full access. Those are the ones here that have 0 items. Any of the ones that had limited permissions, at least, and a few others, you'll have the ability to incrementally set their permissions. That's what's replacing limited permissions. So that's how we would do that, Paul, is we'll set that up, and then you can set your limited exactly how you need to based on what's available in here. Now, Scott is also asking, or Aaron, excuse me. Aaron is asking, is there any way they can see this webinar? Here's how you can, Aaron, is tomorrow morning, this will be posted into the support page in the knowledge base and under the webinars on demand. So all you have to do is go look there, probably after lunchtime. I'm in Eastern time zone, so sometime afternoon Eastern time, you should be able to access it from there. We'll have that recording for you of everything we talked about today, and you can access it from there, as are all of our other Virtual Thursdays trainings.
Hey, Mark, go over to the maintenance permissions real quick. Got a good question from Scott. So if they're going to use truck check in our system, the integrated truck check solution in our system, in the maintenance. So what this tells me here is that you could turn off modify category, modify apparatus, and grant no access to those, but still be able to request maintenance, complete maintenance, assign and schedule maintenance, and you should still be able to do truck check.
Absolutely, you can.
I would want to
I know you can.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you can go into Scott, into the maintenance module. On the top of the page there, you'll have a button in the navigation bar for truck checks. And you can't exactly do that, what Tom was talking about, do your truck checks. There's a little bit of limitations with that. You can have only two checklists per vehicle, and you're limited to 50 items per checklist. And that's with the version that comes with everybody's ER account today. And then you can absolutely go in here and set these permissions, specifically the ones that we don't want anybody to go in and edit apparatus, which is what the word modify means. Their categories, equipment, deleting items, to take those permissions away.
You can turn off, I think, Mark, you can turn off our view archive to view maintenance history and still be able to do truck check. Does that sound right to you?
It certainly does, yeah. I know you have to leave request maintenance, complete maintenance, and I'm not even sure about assigning and scheduling.
Probably that one too, because it kind of, once you do a truck check, it does a full-on complete maintenance. So I'm guessing that's I'd have to test it, but I think that's probably correct.
Yeah, so I think that's what you can do is just go ahead and set them up similar to we have here. Leave selected for full, request, complete, assign schedule maintenance, and go in and make sure that functionality is there, and then you're good to go at the minimum. So Dirk has just posted a question. Do you have any idea when the calendar view issue will get worked out? When you click on a day, sometimes you can't see training listed. I know we did have some issues with that a while back, but I thought we got those resolved. So Dirk, can you please check on that again? And if you can't see those things, certainly put a support ticket in, please, so our support team can get that written up if that is still an issue, to have it corrected. Appreciate you throwing that question out there to us. And get back to Scott's question about the paperless truck checks. Our maintenance module with the truck checks you have available, you can go 100% paperless. And if you haven't experimented with that, there are several virtual Thursdays trainings we did that we recorded and put into the knowledge base, and also all of the knowledge base articles about truck checks that are out there for the maintenance module. Just research those. And if you need help with that, I'm sure Tom, if he's available, can help you, or you can shoot me an email and I'll give you a hand as well. My email address is mark.wolf, WOLF, @emergencyreporting.com. And shoot me an email and we'll try to help you out with that the best we can, get you up and running. We'll go ahead and give everybody another moment here to put any additional questions in. And if we don't see any here in a few moments, we're going to go ahead and put this one in the record book. Unless, Tom, do you have anything else to bring up to our attendees?
I just want to thank everybody for participating today. I know your schedules are busy, but we're grateful for your participation, attendance today, and the great questions that you presented to me and Mark. And just want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a holiday season. This may be, are we doing another virtual Thursday this month, Mark, or is this going to be it?
This is it. This is going to be the tail end, Charlie, for the year.
So look for more excellent training in 2019. We'll probably start out the year with kind of an update on all of the changes that have taken place, get everybody up to speed for the new year. I'm sure that'll be part of the plan for one of the early virtual Thursdays in 2019. And please keep those suggestions coming through the feature request. It does not fall into a black hole. It is viewed by the product owners, by all of us. We get email updates on this as well. And so especially, I know that, personally, the product owner, Mike McGreevy, for roles and permissions. Now, granted, he has built the infrastructure for this, but then all of the product owners will now be responsible for taking your suggestions and deciding, okay, how are we going to enhance the granularity of the new roles and permissions features? So we're looking forward to hearing what you guys want.
Yeah, Dirk just asked the question, how many votes does it take to get a granular permission granted and put into the system? Dirk, the answer's quite a few. I don't think there's an actual hard and fast number. The product owners will take a look at that. The more votes you can put into a request out there and suggest a feature, a user story, the better chance you have of getting that worked on. No. So I don't know, Tom's got any other insight to that, but
yes, a little bit on those. So that's how you get you start the communication with our team, is through the feature request. Now, keep in mind, as you look through and see what's been actually implemented, the most votes don't always win, or in the case of truck check, the most votes sometimes takes a really long time to correctly implement to ER standards. And so something with a lot of votes may take a while because of the sheer amount of development resources it would take to do. Now, these roles and permissions, I would say that they're not going to be nearly as bandwidth intensive as, say, truck check would be. So just because it has 50, 60, 100 votes versus, 2,000 votes for, say, something like truck check, doesn't mean it won't get developed. In fact, conversations take place within the development teams based on many things. Votes are just one. It's almost like the Electoral College, right? Votes are one thing, but then we've got to take into consideration, okay, how hard and how long will it take to develop? What's the return on investment? And what's the business case for it as well? Is this going to benefit a lot of our customers, and is it something, wow, this is going to be a great solution, but not everybody's thought of it, so therefore it doesn't have a ton of votes. So there's a lot of factors, a lot of variables that go into stories that get developed. So keep that in mind, and don't let the lack of votes preclude you from having hope. And then secondly, all of you that are joining us today are clearly power users, or you wouldn't be here. Please, once you've created that feature request, or if there's one that's already been created, copy and paste that URL to that feature request and send it to everybody in your department, anybody you know who uses ER. That's how we network and get those votes, gets things voted up. So just keep that in mind as you go through it. And so, Dirk, the vote is a priority system, and if I understand the question correctly, as far as a priority system, so the more votes clearly get the attention and help rank these stories, but it's not the only factor in determining what gets developed. So I hope that I know it sounds convoluted, but I hope it makes sense. Kind of think of the Electoral College a little bit, where you have the popular vote, and then you have the Electoral College vote, the delegates, and so they don't always match. And so that's a similar process here. But I can tell you, those with the most votes eventually do get developed. Just the problem with the ones with the big votes is that it takes a lot of development bandwidth, and I use truck check as an example. That hung around for years until we could get it exactly the way we wanted it.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Tom. I want to point out to everybody too, is on your support page now, we do have an area that's somewhat new. It's called our community. We do have a new topic area in here for feature suggestions as well. So we'll just give you a briefing on that. And
Mark, while you're doing that, I want
some of these items in here.
Alice asked about how do I get the handouts? So the handouts are basically PDF versions of the knowledge base articles. But Alice, if you go to your control panel for GoToMeeting, one of the drop downs or sections of the control panel is called handouts, and you'll be able to download those PDFs directly from the control panel in the handouts section. I hope that explains it to you okay, so you can grab those immediately. Again, it's a supplement. It's so you guys have quick access to those articles and can print and distribute them without having to navigate into the knowledge base.
Okay, Alice says she can't do that where she's at. So Alice, what we're going to recommend that you do then is all the information we talked about today, and there's knowledge base articles in the handouts are in the knowledge base. So log in to your support page, and I know you can do that, Alice. And then go to your knowledge base. Right at the top of the page under admin, rules and permissions, everything's listed right there. You can take a look at them from there as well. So, okay, and you're welcome, Alice. It's good to see you on board with us today. Alice is out west. One of our customers, she came to I think it was a Seattle RTA for a day up there and visited with us, and we helped her quite a bit.
Kittitas Valley, I believe.
I think that is correct. Yeah.
And I'm going to put the link to the knowledge base articles into the chat here in a minute, guys. So you can grab it that way. I hope, Alice, you're able to do that.
Okay, so here's our last call out for questions for us. Don't forget about the feature request stuff we've just been reviewing. You've got two places to do it: from your homepage, suggest a feature, or in the new community section, there's a feature suggestion here. Quite a bit of information is being posted in here, and we need to get customer interaction. You folks are the ones that drive some of this, as we were talking about with those votes. The more votes you get onto something, the more our product owners and the people that look at these things have a reason to spend some development time towards it, like Tom was describing. Okay, it looks like we're not getting any more questions posted in, so what we're going to do is go ahead and put this one in a record book and wish everybody out there, again, like Tom said, a Merry Christmas and a holiday season. Everybody stay safe, and we'll hope to have you here with the virtual Thursdays when we resume them the first week of January. Thanks a lot, folks, and have a good one.
Good job, Mark. Thank you.
You're welcome.